This is TWiT.
Hey there, I'm Micah Sargent. Look, as a geek myself, I feel it's only fair if I admit something. We can be kind of hard to shop for. So what do you get for that geek in your life who has everything already? Well, a Club TWiT gift subscription, of course. TWiT podcasts keep them informed and entertained with the most relevant tech news podcasts available. With a Club TWiT subscription, they're going to get access to all of our podcasts ad-free, exclusive outtakes, behind the scenes and special content, and I love this, exclusive shows like my own Hands on Mac and Hands on Windows from Paul Thurrott, as well as the Untitled Linux Show. So purchase your geek's gift at twit.tv/clubtwit, and they will thank you every day.
One thing, so obviously your book touches in a number of different places. It starts, talking about kind of the arc of Android, right? It starts with Photo Farm. That's, when is that? That's like 2004, 2005-ish, yep. All the way through 2010. That's when you joined. But prior to that, all these things happened. We had the Android One release. We had the G1, which I know is near and dear to Ron's heart. We had the Motorola Droid, which was near and dear to my heart. The proximity of the Droid to the Nexus One, which I didn't realize was only 3 months different. And I guess my question there is, so I was... My first Android device was the Motorola Droid. And through reading the book, it was funny to hear kind of the inside talk about the Droid being like, is that really finished? Because it kind of in some ways compared to a polished experience, a polished device like the Nexus One, the Droid really is the antithesis to it, hard edges and everything like that. Yet it had the benefit of coming out prior to the Nexus One. And I guess my question there is, obviously internally, it seems like Googlers really wanted to champion and wanted the Nexus One to be the device to get everybody excited about Android. And I'm not sure that it necessarily worked out that way. If the Nexus One had come out prior to the Motorola Droid, do you think that would have changed that perception?
Not being a business or marketing person, I'm totally unqualified to answer the question. So I'll jump in and say, I don't think it would have worked. I really don't. When you talk to everybody, like they had their passion, their emotion was there. And like this was going to be the best representative of, Android, the platform, and the form factor was awesome. And it was all curvy and smooth and it fit in your hand really well, as opposed to that, jagged, hard edge thing. However, the thing that was really interesting when the Droid came out was a bunch of engineers on the team, like as they told me, the engineers on the team were like, this, the passion, that Nexus One, that's the better engineered product. That's the thing that's really going to shine. And we're going to sell it on our store. And it's, it's going to be, the phone and the market of the future. But the reality is that advertising and marketing work. So Verizon, a company that really knows how to do that, basically went all in on Droid, and they took advantage of what the team thought were the disadvantages. As you said, it was like all these hard edges. It seemed kind of clunky, like more like a prototype than a phone. And they just said, no, it's this robotic thing. That is good. That is the look of our premium device. It's going to be awesome. And then they did this campaign, which was hugely successful. The Droid Does campaign. You can still see these videos on YouTube.
I remember it.
And it turns out that works. That sells devices. That gives people mind share so that they understand this thing, as opposed to like Google launching a phone and putting it on a website. I think there was this expectation that, the masses would just flood to the site. Well, that's not really how capitalism works, right? Like, yes, websites are important, but I think the fact that the company had put so much money and effort into driving the marketing for that particular device, that really did it. The timing was interesting, though, because there was a possibility they were going to come out too close together. Yeah. And then there was a conflict internally, like, well, if you got two bugs and one of them's the Google device and one of them's this thing that we're helping a partner with, which one do you work on? And at some point, Andy said, you work on the partner device. It's important for that to succeed, as opposed to like, you're always conflicted and then maybe neither one ends up being good enough. So let's build a little room into the schedule so that we can actually launch or help launch the Droid successfully, and then we launch our own device.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this was at a time when, you could probably count the amount of Android devices that were available on market on one hand. Now, I mean, obviously that's a completely different story.
You'd need at least two.
Yes, exactly.
And I can't help but think, Chet, as you're talking about that and kind of the past, we evaluate the past by our present, right? And so now you're in a position where Google now has the Pixel line and is building out that line and kind of building on that dream that was set, kind of 15 years ago. Does it just take, looking at the totality of the history of Android, did it just take this long for all the pieces to fall in place, or did the stumbles and learnings have to happen in order to get to where we are now with a unified line and kind of what is as close to an ecosystem as it gets?
I think there are a lot of things that contribute to the current realities of the Pixel stuff being out there. Like, there was always the intention from the beginning of doing a device, whether you were helping partners with it and therefore learning more about what their needs were and incorporating that into the platform, or whether it was the Nexus line where, we were developing that in lockstep with each of the releases. You needed a reference device to really prove out the things you were putting in this platform that you intended everybody else to use for their devices. Otherwise, it's all fiction. But those Nexus devices, like they were, some of them were quite nice, right? Like I loved my Nexus S, really nice form factor. And I think the 5 was really nice. Is that the one I'm remembering?
So Chet, the Nexus 5, I'll tell you, so here at All About Android, we have an unofficial Android Hall of Fame, and the first device entered into the Android Hall of Fame was the Nexus 5, because the Nexus 5 was a pretty damn perfect phone in my at
the time. It was a pretty solid phone,
agreed.
Especially
it was good
for us, for enthusiasts especially, right? Maybe not for everyone, but for us, it really checked a lot of the boxes. Even though, like, by default, the Nexus One would have to be in there as well. But anyway, that's a whole tangent. That's a whole road we can go down to get lost on. But
I think you picked the right word there, which is enthusiasts, right?
Yeah.
It never really, none of those phones really made it sort of beyond that kind of market there. And I think the intention with the Pixel phones, at least the way I see it, is these are meant to be, real phones coming out from real companies, shipping in real quantities, really fit and finish on every one of those. It's not the sort of, mixed bag that you got with some of those, where some of the intention with Nexus was to, try out features and see if they landed. Like, no, these are supposed to be good premium phones. With, the follow-on sort of A versions coming out as well, which is kind of a nice model to follow. And now we've kind of hit the groove and we're doing this solid thing. And now people recognize, okay, well, the company is doing this and they have certain expectations. So I can't imagine this was like in the plan from the beginning. I think a lot of things had to come together to say, okay, this is the time when the company is going to invest more and think more in the future about sort of hardware visions as well. Separately from platform is this hardware product thing.
Mm-hmm.